And we welcome you back to Newsmax Now. I'm John Bachman. It's time for a round table discussion.
Yes.
Got it.
We got it. Round
Yes.
table. It's time. Today we're pleased to be joined by Washington Times columnist and host of Constantine's Capitol Hill Show, Tim Constantine, and Brad Bannon. He's the president of Bannon Communications Research. Thanks so much for joining us, guys.
Thanks for having me on the show.
All right, Tim, well, let's start with you. We want to take a look at your column in the Washington Times. You recently interviewed Alabama Congressman Mo Brooks, a conservative. He was a guest on your radio show, pointing to the fact that Marco Rubio is going to face some problems during this presidential primary about borders and open borders. Is this going to be the biggest hurdle Rubio faces, aside from his comments about gay marriage this week?
I think it's going to be a huge hurdle, and I'll tell you why. In 2010, I did an interview with Senator Rubio, then State Senator Rubio, when he was running for that seat, and he said crystal clear, I still have the tape, he said, Tim, pathway to citizenship is just another word for amnesty, and there's no way I can support amnesty. 2 years ago, he's part of the Gang of Eight pushing amnesty. And so I think that conservative wing of the party, and an awful lot of people, 70% of America, think we have to have tighter borders. I think Marco Rubio backtracking at this point is tough, and when you have a prominent Republican congressman already taking him to task for it, he's got a road to hoe there.
Well, Brad, let me ask you, what do you think is a bigger problem for Rubio? Where he stands on immigration and borders right now, or the fact that, as Tim talked about, he's changed his stance quite a bit?
Oh, I think, it's been my experience working in campaigns over the years. It's not the stand on the issue that helped you or hurt you. It's the consistency on the issue. And I agree with Ted. I think this is a big problem for Senator Rubio because he's taken every position on the map on border reform. He was for amnesty, then he was for the Senate compromise, then he wasn't. People want a president with a backbone, and Marco Rubio on immigration reform has the backbone of a jellyfish.
All right, let's move on along now to another topic. The Washington Post weighs in on what some call the far right's new fight against gay marriage. So the Post highlights a group of pro-life activists that are arguing gay marriage is going to lead to an uptick in abortions. They say same-sex marriage leads to lower traditional marriage rates, and therefore statistically unwed women get more abortions than married women do. Let's start with you, Tim. What is your thoughts on that? Is this just an outrageous
someone asked
claim?
me about this. They saw that article and they asked me, and I think it's a stretch. Anytime you have to explain that if A happens, B will happen, and C will happen, and then potentially D will happen, you've got to stretch. I think the bigger concern here is when we talk about children of gay couples, because when you look statistically, there's a whole plethora of studies, but look at the University of Texas study where they show the children of gay students, and this is a huge study of thousands and thousands of people, but the children of gay people, whether you compare them to traditional married couples or to single moms or to divorced couples or stepmoms, doesn't matter who you compare them to, they have higher depression, higher drug use. The simple facts are God created us with a mom and a dad for a reason. Doesn't always work that way. Sometimes something happens, but the idea that a mom and a mom or a dad and a dad provide the exact same, I think that's a bigger concern than trying to promote some gay marriage is going to create abortion issue. I think that's a stretch.
Brad, do you agree?
Well, I agree with part of it. The argument is ridiculous. If you look at that Post article we referred to, the Post writer points out there are at least 2 scientific studies that show that there's absolutely no correlation between marriage rates and whether a state has same-sex marriage legality or not. So it's a ridiculous claim, and the part I agree with is I believe the Supreme Court is going to declare that ban on gay marriage are unconstitutional. And I think these people realize it, and they're grasping for straws. But these aren't the kind of straws that the Supreme Court is going to consider, especially when they have no evidence to back up their claim. It's ridiculous.
Well, Tim, we know that the GOP is already being cast by the Democrats as the less inclusive party, and that they're going to try to run on that from here until Election Day in 2016. And then also we have a story about gay Republicans now saying that they were booted from appearing at a conservative summit in Colorado. These log cabin Republicans say they were not allowed to have a table at the summit because their stance on LGBT issues goes against the core biblical beliefs of the group holding this event. It seems like when this type of stuff happens, it gives fuel to Democrats like Brad for these types of issues that traditionally can tend to blow up in the Republican Party's face.
Well, I think there's two parts to the Colorado story. One is the organization does have traditional conservative views, but the log cabin Republicans showed up day of event and wanted a table. If you and I showed up day of event and wanted a table, we wouldn't have got it either.
Well, do you think they were doing that
there's
to
two parts
specifically
that
try
story.
and make a point and make a news story out of this, and thus we may be helping them out here?
Yeah, I really do, but I think the overall point is a valid one, and that's the Republicans can have a traditional conservative message without being intolerant. We hear the phrase often, what would Jesus do? And Jesus liked embraced the tax collector or embraced the prostitute, not their actions, but he loved the human being. And I think the Republican Party can include people and not necessarily approve of every single behavior they do. I don't agree with every position certain candidates have, but I still like them.
Yeah. Especially with a coalition party as the GOP is trying to kind of cement at this point. Brad, what's your take?
Well, the lack of toleration in the Republican Party hurts them in several ways. If you look at the millennials, who are people basically over, between 18 and 35, they overwhelmingly favor gay marriage. And Republican, in the last two presidential elections, the millennials have gone big time for the Democratic candidate, Barack Obama, and they're going to do it again if the Republicans keep pushing this lack of toleration. It turns off the millennials. And the other thing is there was a Gallup poll released last week, and it says 74% of Americans think states shouldn't discriminate against gays. And the Republicans are pushing their luck if they want to pull this lack of toleration towards other people with other lifestyles. They're asking for problems.
Yeah, we all remember Indiana just a couple weeks ago as well.
That is
Just
true. We have
a
time
final
now.
note on that. I don't think because you don't approve of something means you are discriminating against. And it's a very clever line the Democrats play, but it's not an accurate one. And the idea that young people are voting Democrats, that you're linking that to gay marriage, maybe, but young people have always skewed to the Democrat Party, whether that was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 40 years ago. Young people tend to vote Democrat, period.
This is true.
We have time now for one more topic. We're going to shift now to the Republicans and guns. How's that? There's a picture that's been circulating. Two GOP congressmen are under investigation for tweeting this picture. I'm sure you guys saw Congressman Kim Buck and Trey Gowdy posing with an AR-15, which is illegal to own, and the district, they're saying it's nothing more than a paperweight. Let's start with you real quickly. Brad, what's your take?
Well, this whole concept of congressional corruption is one of the reasons why Congress has a 11% job approval rating. People, for good reason, don't trust the people in Washington.
All right,
And
Brad,
this
you say
has
it's congressional
another-
corruption, but we're running out of time, and I want to give Tim a chance to respond.
10 seconds.
It's a slow news week if this is a story. Ken Buck went to the Capitol Police, told them he was bringing it, asked them if it was legal. It's nothing but a paperweight. You can't fire it. It's not operable. It is a non-story.
And also want to point out, too, in that picture, folks look very carefully, there is a lock on the trigger, again, making it inoperable, even though it's not loaded and doesn't have any bullets inside. There's a lock on there, too, important to point out in that picture. Gentlemen, thanks so much for being with us for a roundtable discussion. Glad we were able to cover a bunch of topics there and get your insight on some news happening today. We're coming right back here on Newsmax now. We're going to take a look at a story of one man who refused to give up during the Boston Marathon.